Let me tell you about the time my world turned upside down. It all started on a Thursday evening, the kind of evening you'd expect nothing out of the ordinary. I was John, just an average guy, quiet and unassuming. But that night, I stumbled upon something that changed everything. I found my wife Linda's phone buzzing on the living room couch. Curiosity got the better of me, and what I saw was like a punch to the gut. A text from her coworker, Mark, that left little to the imagination. That's how I discovered Linda's infidelity. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who jumps to conclusions or makes a scene. No, I needed more than just a text to go on. So, I set up a hidden camera in our house. If you're thinking it's extreme, well, desperate times call for desperate measures. Over the next few weeks, I became something of a silent detective. The footage I collected was like a series of gut punches, each revealing more of Linda's ongoing affair with Mark. Every hug, every secret meeting, it was all there in high definition. But I wasn't going to just sit back. I had a plan. It started with an anonymous tip to Mark's wife. A little piece of information that led to a big explosion. She confronted him right at his workplace. Talk about drama. It was a public scandal that rippled back to Linda. Linda, my wife, was shaken up by the news. I could tell she was nervous, always on edge, probably suspecting that her affair was no longer a secret. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Meanwhile, I was making moves of my own. I moved half of our savings into a separate account, a financial safeguard, you might call it. I was preparing for whatever came next. And what came next was a visit to a divorce lawyer. I needed to know where I stood legally. The lawyer was a straight shooter, told me exactly what my options were. I appreciated that. No sugarcoating, just the hard, cold facts. This was the beginning of the end. The start of a saga that would turn my quiet life into something you'd see in a movie. But let me tell you, living it was a whole different story. Linda was a wreck after that. She'd jump at every phone call, every knock on the door. It was clear she was scared of being exposed. But she still didn't know that I was the puppeteer pulling the strings. Meanwhile, I was setting up my financial fortress. Moving half of our savings was just the start. I reviewed every bank statement, every investment. I was leaving nothing to chance. If this ship was going down, I wasn't going down with it. The hidden camera continued to be my eyes and ears. Each day, it captured more of Linda's deceit, more of her lies. It was painful to watch, sure, but it fueled my resolve. Every secret rendezvous, every whispered lie, it all added to the case I was building. Linda's panic was almost palpable now. She was on edge, constantly looking over her shoulder. The fear of exposure had her trapped in a prison of her own making. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Let's dive right back into the thick of things. After setting the stage for Linda's downfall, I knew I had to up my game. So, I cooked up a story about a sudden business trip. It was a lie, of course, but a necessary one. Linda bought it, hook, line, and sinker, giving me the perfect opportunity to set my next plan into motion. While I was supposedly away, I hired a private investigator. If you think that sounds like something out of a noir film, you'd be right. But this was no movie, this was my life, and I needed all the evidence I could get. The PI was a pro, blending into the background, capturing every sordid detail of Linda's affair with Mark. Meanwhile, I wasn't just relying on hired help. I brought in some trusted allies, a few close friends who knew the real deal. They were on board with my plan, ready to lend a hand in any way they could. It was reassuring to have a small crew backing me up, making me feel a bit like the ringleader of a covert operation. Preparation for the confrontation with Linda was like rehearsing for the most intense performance of my life. I went over what I would say, how I'd say it, anticipating her reactions. It had to be perfect, a culmination of all the evidence and emotion churning inside me. The day of my surprise return came sooner than expected. I got back home, quietly, like a ghost. Linda was caught completely off guard, her face a mix of surprise and fear. I could tell she hadn't seen this coming. Without wasting a moment, I launched into the confrontation. It was intense, like a dam bursting. I laid out all the evidence before her. The texts, the videos, the testimonies. Linda tried to keep up her facade, denying everything with a frantic energy. But I was relentless, my words sharp and precise. When I finally showed her the video evidence, Linda's defenses crumbled. She saw the irrefutable proof of her infidelity, and the weight of her actions came crashing down on her. Her denial turned to desperation as the reality of what she had done, and what she was about to lose, hit her. That's where I'll leave you hanging for now. The story is far from over, but every tale needs its pauses, its moments of anticipation. And trust me, what comes next is worth the wait. As I watched Linda's world fall apart, a part of me wanted to relish in her downfall. But this wasn't a time for gloating. It was a time for action, for making sure that every piece of my plan fell perfectly into place. After the big confrontation with Linda, it was time to up the ante. I gave her an ultimatum: come clean publicly about the affair, or face the legal consequences. It was a hard line, but by then, I was all out of sympathy. Linda's reaction? Panic, pure and simple. But I was past caring about her feelings. I had a mission, and I was going to see it through to the end. Without waiting for her to make a move, I went ahead and released the evidence of her affair to our social circle. Yeah, you heard that right. I made everything public. The texts, the videos, all of it. The reaction was immediate. Our friends, our family, they were all in shock. Some couldn't believe it. Others were angry, disappointed. It was a social earthquake, and Linda was at the epicenter. But the fallout didn't end there. Remember Mark, Linda's partner in crime? His world came crashing down too. His affair was now public knowledge, and his employer didn't take kindly to the scandal. He got the boot, fired from his job. Karma, right? Amidst all this chaos, Linda was desperate. She came to me, begging for forgiveness, pleading for a second chance. But her tears and apologies fell on deaf ears. I was unmoved. My mind was made up. The divorce was happening. No turning back. So, I went ahead and filed for divorce, citing her infidelity as the reason. The legal process was set in motion, and there was no stopping it now. Papers were filed, lawyers were called in, the whole 9 yards. It was a whirlwind of legal jargon and meetings, but I was ready for it. This was the final stretch, and I was determined to see it through. And that's where I'll leave you for now. The story's far from over, but every good tale needs its moments of suspense. Stay tuned, because what comes next is the grand finale. By now, you know that my life had turned into something straight out of a soap opera. But trust me, this chapter gets even more intense. The divorce proceedings were in full swing, and it was time to talk about assets. Turns out, Linda's financial irresponsibility was about to catch up with her in a big way. During our marriage, I was always the one who kept an eye on our finances. Linda, well, she had a taste for the finer things in life, but apparently, she wasn't too keen on keeping track of her spending. So, when the lawyers started digging into our finances, it was like opening Pandora's box. Linda's reckless spending was laid bare for all to see, and it seriously jeopardized her claim to our assets. But that was just the beginning. The social fallout from Linda's actions was like watching a house of cards collapse. Friends who once welcomed her with open arms now turned their backs. Our family, who had embraced her as one of their own, were now cold and distant. She was ostracized, left to deal with the consequences of her actions alone. And then there was the housing dilemma. Without her fair share of the assets, Linda couldn't afford to keep our house. She was scrambling to find a place to live. But with her reputation tarnished and her finances in shambles, it was an uphill battle. But wait, there's more. Linda's affair didn't just wreck her personal life, it spilled over into her professional life too. Word got out at her workplace about the whole sordid affair, and let's just say her employer wasn't too thrilled. Before she knew it, Linda was packing up her desk, her career at that company over. Through all of this, I remained focused on the end goal, the divorce settlement. And when it finally came, it was a win for me. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me a favorable settlement. It was a moment of vindication, a confirmation that justice had been served. So, there you have it. The tale of a cheating wife, a quiet husband, and a dramatic fall from grace. Stay tuned for the final chapter, where all the loose ends get tied up. After the dust of the divorce had settled, it was time for a fresh start. I dove into my hobbies and interests, things I'd neglected for too long. It was like breathing new life into my lungs. I rediscovered passions I'd forgotten I had. It was exhilarating, liberating, and exactly what I needed. But life, as you've probably figured out by now, always has a way of throwing curveballs. Linda, carrying the weight of her actions, reached out. She wanted to reconcile, to make amends. But I was done with that chapter of my life. I firmly refused her attempts. The bridge was burned, and there was no going back. Meanwhile, I was embracing new beginnings. I met someone incredible through one of my hobby groups. She was everything Linda wasn't: genuine, honest, kind. We clicked right away, and it wasn't long before we started dating. It felt good to be valued, to be seen for who I was, not for what I could provide. But the saga wasn't over yet. Mark, Linda's partner in the affair, was facing his own demons. Unable to cope with the fallout, he spiraled into a personal crisis. His career, his marriage, his reputation, it had all crumbled. It was a steep price to pay, and it seemed he wasn't equipped to handle it. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, Linda dropped the bombshell. She was pregnant. The catch? She wasn't sure who the father was. It was a mess, a real soap opera twist. And naturally, she turned to me, asking me to take a paternity test. Reluctantly, I agreed, but I made sure it was done legally, by the book. No room for doubt, no room for error. It was a strange feeling, being potentially linked to Linda again, even in this small way. But I needed to know, to have that closure. The day the results came in was tense. The envelope held more than just a piece of paper, it held answers, finality. And when I opened it, I found relief. I was not the father. For Linda, though, it was another layer of despair added to her already troubled life. And there you have it, the end of a saga that took me through the highest highs and the lowest lows. A story of betrayal and retribution, of falling down and getting back up. A story that, despite everything, ends on a note of hope and new beginnings. After the whole paternity test saga, I thought I'd seen the last of Linda's troubles. Turns out, I was wrong. The news hit like a sledgehammer. Mark, the other man in this twisted tale, flat out refused to acknowledge the child. Linda was left high and dry, all alone in her predicament. It was a harsh blow, even for someone who had made the choices she had. But Linda's woes didn't stop there. Her friends, the ones who used to flock around her, now kept their distance. Her family, too, was less than supportive. She was isolated, left to face the consequences of her actions and her pregnancy all by herself. Meanwhile, I was living my life, focusing on my own path. I can't say I felt much about Linda's situation. It might sound cold, but after everything that had happened, my well of sympathy had run dry. I was indifferent, detached, just another bystander watching her world crumble. Linda's financial struggles were the icing on the without a job, with her reputation in tatters, and now a baby on the way. She was in a tight spot. Money was tight, and the lifestyle she was accustomed to was a distant memory. She was struggling, and it seemed like there was no light at the end of her tunnel. So, there you have it, the latest in the saga of Linda's downfall. Stay tuned for more twists and turns. The news of Linda's financial struggle didn't surprise me. She had always had a taste for luxury, a penchant for spending without thinking. Now, with no steady income and a baby on the way, her financial situation was dire. She was scrambling to make ends meet, a far cry from the lavish lifestyle she once enjoyed. Amidst all this, I maintained my indifference. It wasn't my battle to fight anymore. I had my own life to live, my own future to build. Linda's choices had led her to this point, and it was up to her to navigate her way out of it. Her once glamorous life had unraveled, thread by thread. The choices she made, the secrets she kept, had all come back to haunt her. She was facing the harsh reality of her actions, a reality that was unforgiving and relentless. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Linda, who once had everything, was now struggling to hold on to anything. Her fall from grace was a stark reminder of how quickly life can change, how swiftly fortunes can reverse. As I watched from a distance, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. The saga that had consumed my life for so long was finally coming to an end. Linda's story was her own to write now, and I had my own story to live. Her financial struggles were just another chapter in her tale of downfall. She was learning the hard lessons of life, lessons about responsibility, consequences, and survival. It was a tough road ahead for her, but it was a road she had to travel alone. You might think the storm's past, but hold on to your hats, because there's still more to tell. Amidst all the chaos, I found something unexpected. A new community, a fresh start. In my new social circle, I found support, camaraderie, and genuine friendship. It was a diverse group of people, all with their own stories, but united in their willingness to welcome me into their fold. We shared hobbies, laughs, and the kind of conversations that stretched late into the night. It was a stark contrast to the loneliness of my past life. But while I was finding my footing in this new community, Linda's world continued to spiral. Her mental health, already fragile from the ordeal, began to deteriorate further. The isolation, the financial struggles, the weight of her choices, it was all taking a toll. Linda tried to claw her way back, seeking financial support to help with her situation. But she hit legal roadblock after legal roadblock. The system that she once thought would protect her now seemed to turn its back. Her attempts were met with frustration and dead ends. And then there was the chatter, the whispers and gossip that spread like wildfire through our community. Linda's story, her infidelity, and its fallout had become a hot topic. Most sided with me, empathizing with my situation, casting judgment on her actions. It was a harsh reality for Linda, a public opinion court where she had already been tried and convicted. Throughout all this, I did find moments of self-reflection. While I was satisfied with how things had turned out legally, I couldn't ignore the emotional toll it had taken on me. It was a bittersweet feeling. Victory, yes, but not without its scars. So, there you have it. The latest chapter in a story that's had more twists and turns than a mountain road. Stay tuned, because there's still more to come. Here we are, at the final chapter of this whirlwind tale. Just when I thought I could close the book on Linda and all the drama, life threw a few more curveballs. Linda reached out to me again, her voice tinged with desperation. She was seeking help, any help, but I had made my decision. I had moved on, and there was no going back. It was tough, but I remained firm in my decision to stay out of her life. I had my own path to walk, and it no longer included her. Surprisingly, a few of Linda's friends, the ones who had turned their backs on her, began to show her some sympathy. But it was too little, too late. The bridges were burned, and the distance between her and her former life was too great to bridge. During this time, I came to a realization. Yes, I had won legally and morally, but the victory felt hollow. The whole saga had left a bitter taste in my mouth. Winning the battle hadn't brought the satisfaction I thought it would. It was a victory, sure, but at what cost? Linda's life took another dramatic turn when she went into labor. She delivered the baby alone in a hospital, a stark symbol of her isolation. It was a poignant moment, marking the beginning of her journey as a single mother, a journey fraught with challenges and uncertainties. As Linda navigated the early days of motherhood with minimal support, I was embarking on a new chapter myself. My relationship had grown serious, a sign that I was finally moving on from the past. This new relationship was healthy, built on trust and mutual respect. It was a stark contrast to what I had with Linda. As I reflect on the entire experience, it's hard to ignore the complexity of emotions it stirred. The journey was a roller coaster, filled with ups and downs, triumphs and defeats. It was a chapter of my life that taught me a lot about myself, about others, and about the unpredictable nature of life. Linda, in her new role as a single mother, faced an uphill battle. The challenges of raising a child alone, especially under such strange circumstances, were immense. Yet, in a way, it marked the start of a new journey for her as well, one where she had to confront the consequences of her actions and hopefully find a path to redemption. For me, the end of this saga wasn't just about moving on. It was about growth, about learning from the past and building a better future. My new relationship was a testament to that growth, a sign that life could be beautiful again, that love and trust could be rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. The story of Linda and me, of her infidelity and its repercussions, was more than just a tale of a cheating wife and a quiet husband. It was a story of human frailty, of choices and